Is this the earth we want future generations to inherit? Or this one? Yep, me too. Our guest will tell us how to achieve this. Hi everyone, and welcome to Calling All Vegans. I'm Sue Spar, this is my friend and co-host, Alec Bosse. Now we are chatting with someone today whose immeasurable contribution to veganism could have me singing his praises for pages. So I will simply welcome climate healer, the initiator of the moonshot of this generation, Vegan World 2026, and one of the best darn humans on the planet, Dr. Sailesh Rao, to Calling All Vegans. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for that.
Now, you actually appeared on the very first episode of our show, and we also had the pleasure of interviewing you after a screening of A Prayer for Compassion, which is just one of the many documentaries in which you're involved. But this is Alec's first time sitting down with you.
I know. Last time I wasn't able to make it, and we had our special guest co-host.
That's right, Jenny McQueen.
Jenny McQueen.
Us out, so.
Yes.
Now, a focus of our show is highlighting various forms of activism and encouraging people to start getting active or to stretch themselves to do more. You've undertaken a very precise, unique, and lofty mission, which is to attain a vegan world by 2026. It started with a pinky promise to someone very special to you. I wonder if you could please just give us the backstory of Vegan World 2026, please.
Right. Thank you for that. I see my granddaughter as the originator of almost everything I did in the last 10 years. She's 10 years old, actually. She just turned 10 on last Thursday.
That's right. Oh, yes, that's right. She had a November birthday.
Right, yeah. See, because when she was born, you see the picture behind me? This picture was taken in 2009, a year before she was born. And there's a story there. When I first took this picture, I had this sense of perfection because everything was in its place. Every animal, every bird, every tree, I had the sense of perfection. That was how beautiful it was. And then I asked the owners, how did you make this happen? And they said, oh, we did nothing. We just tore down the fences. It was a coffee plantation. We tore down the fences and gave it back to the animals. And they did everything. I said, that's it. That's all you have to do.
Perfect.
I said, well, we also had to patrol the land and make sure that no human being comes inside. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's when I felt really small because I was born in this forest, just 200 miles from where I was standing in India. And so I felt like I don't even belong in my own home, because this couple had come from New Jersey to make this happen. And so I felt depressed. I felt like our species doesn't belong on Earth. If you just take human beings out, the other species all do great, right? Mm-hmm. So I had that feeling in my mind and I was thinking about it and I was researching on this topic. And then my granddaughter was born a year later in November of 2010.
That changes everything.
I came to see her when she was a month old. And she looked up at me, I was holding her in my arms. She looked up at me and she smiled. And I had the same sense of perfection that I had at the sanctuary. Mm-hmm. So I realized that she belongs exactly as she is. And that we all must belong exactly as we are. And that we're not telling the right story. Right? So she immediately turned my head around and made me look at things differently. Right? So that was the gift that I got from her right away. And then, I began to treat her differently, meaning I realized that I had a lot to learn from her. There was nothing I can teach her when she is teaching me. Yeah. So I made a promise to her that I would never, ever tell her a lie when she was about 2 years old. And she used that. She came and asked me about Santa Claus, about Easter Bunny, about tooth fairies. So she knows the real truth behind all of those, right?
What do you mean, Santa Claus? What are you talking about?
So she now has this inroad to what she knows, is the truth, right? She'd come and ask me, and she knows that I would tell her the truth. So this was the backstory, okay? So for the Vegan World 2026, because I was doing research at the same time, and I was seeing that we are on track to wipe out almost all the wild vertebrates on the planet by 2026. Yeah. Okay? So there was a report in the World Wildlife Fund in 2014 saying we wiped out 52% of all the wild vertebrates between 1970 and 2010. And I knew that we had wiped out 60% of the wild vertebrates between 10,000 years ago and 1970. So we have wiped out almost more than 80% of the wild vertebrates by 2010. And so I did an extrapolation of that and said, how many more years can we do this? And I assumed that we were destroying wild vertebrates at the rate at which we are growing our economy. Okay, so using that calculation, I came up with 2026. And I was shocked. I said, if it's true, why isn't everybody talking about this, right? So I thought maybe my calculations are so simple-minded, I'm just doing an engineering calculation, who knows? So I thought I'll wait till the next report. And that came out in 2016. And it said that between 1970 and 2012, 58% of wild vertebrates had disappeared. So we lost from 52, it went to 58 in just 2 years. So at that rate, we are on track to wipe out 100% of the wild vertebrates by 2026. So that was the calculation I did, and that came out in October of 2016, I think, or September or October of 2016. And so I had just read that, and then I was reading a story to my granddaughter in bed to put her to bed. And at the end of the story, she asked me, so Grandpa, who were the first human beings? And that's a very profound question, okay? And I told her, okay, I'm going to explain to you how it works. Imagine that you're standing on the street and you're holding your mother by your hand. And you ask your mother to bring her mother to stand by her side and so on. So you create a long line of mothers on this side of the street. And on the other side of the street, you ask a chimpanzee to do the same thing with her mother and her grandmother and so on. By the time these two lines go from Phoenix to Tucson, they will merge. Be only one single line because both lines are going to say, hey, that's my mother too. So immediately she sat up in bed and she said, what? Are you telling me that animals are my family? And I said, yeah, now that you put it that way, they are your family. To be honest, I never put it that way, okay?
It's a sharp cookie.
He made the connection right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, then why are people eating my family? Grandpa, make them stop. And she started naming names of people that she knows who were eating her family. And she was just 5 years old at that time. She was almost 5 years old. And I realized that I had created a world full of monsters for my granddaughter. So I was trying to console her. And I was trying to stop her from crying because my job was to put her to sleep, She was bawling away. And
nice going there, Grandpa.
I know. So I tried all kinds of things. And then finally I told her, Kimaya, this is what I do every day. I'm trying to make people stop. In fact, it's my job to make people stop. So immediately she stopped crying and she looked at me wide-eyed and she said, what? This is your job? This is your job? You haven't done your job. So when will you do your job? And I blurted out, I have to do it by 2026. Otherwise, we are all in big trouble.
Wow.
So she said, will you promise me that? I said, okay, I'll promise you that. She said, will you give me a pinky promise? I said, sure, I'll give you a pinky promise.
Just got serious.
And then she told me, you can never, ever break a pinky promise.
Uh-oh.
And then she went to sleep, right? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't sleep. I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I promised my granddaughter that I'm going to make the world vegan by 2026. And who am I to do it, right? Who am I to make this promise on behalf of all human beings? But I finally dozed off to sleep. And then I woke up in the morning realizing that it's actually an engineering problem. And I'm an engineer, I'm a systems engineer. And it's my job to figure out how to make the world go vegan by 2026. I mean, at least the engineering part of it, I should be able to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I said, okay, this is Vegan World 2026 project, and then talk about it. So I spent the next 2 years just talking about it. It's only when I spoke at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, in front of Renee King Sonnen and Jane Willers Mitchell, that it really took shape. Mm-hmm. Because Jane resonated with it. They both resonated with it. And they said, Jane said, actually, even in news media, nothing really gets done until you put a deadline.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then when the deadline happens, you see people working towards that deadline, and then things happen. So we just make it happen. So, and I told her, actually, it's a lifeline, not a deadline, because it's a lifeline for us.
That's right. And they're both such firecrackers, that pair. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in order for us to achieve a vegan world, it's important that we have allies to be able to assist us in reaching that. Can you tell us why it's important to have a common ground and allies with non-vegans for us to achieve a vegan world in the future?
It's about telling a story in which we are all on this transformative path, from the caterpillar phase that we were in to the butterfly phase that we are all evolving towards. Right? So that's the story I tell, because in nature, every species belongs exactly as it is. In fact, in this sanctuary, I was observing an elephant break branches of trees and eating the leaves and throwing the branch away. And I asked Pamela, the owner of this sanctuary, isn't the elephant being destructive to that tree? And she said, no. Wherever the elephant broke branches of trees, that's where the sunlight streams and nourishes the underbrush. And wherever the elephant walked on bushes, that's where new pathways are formed in the forest. And wherever the elephant dropped huge mounds of poop, that's when new trees are born. She said, nothing the elephant does is outside the ecosystem. It all belongs. So I realized that, if we belong exactly like the elephant, then we must have been doing something all along that nature needed. So that's what I spent the next, 6 years after my granddaughter was born, studying and researching. What is it that we were doing? And I came up with this hypothesis of the climate regulator species. Because that's really who we are. If you acknowledge that humans have caused climate to change, then you've automatically assumed responsibility for maintaining that climate at a position that's comfortable for everybody, right? So we are the climate regulator species. And we did that for the first 10,000 years unknowingly. After agriculture, right? Mm-hmm. We kept the temperature constant for 10,000 years unknowingly by just cutting down forests and raising animals for food, right? And over the last 200 years, we have now built all the tools and technologies to understand what we did. And now we have been asked to become conscious climate regulators of the planet.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the butterfly phase that we are entering into, the conscious phase. So this way, everyone is on the same journey. We are all on this journey. Some of us have, figured out that we need to stop eating animals for that. And some of us have figured out that we have to stop polluting with plastic. And some of us have figured out that everyone has gone through different phases of understanding of this evolution that we are going through. But I say that, we are all on this infinite path, and we are all going to be taking this. We are all going to go vegan. Why? Because fundamentally we are all vegan. Yeah. When I ask even pre-vegans, I call them pre-vegans and not non-vegans. When I ask them, would you deliberately hurt an innocent animal unnecessarily? They all say no. So when I say, well, you're vegan. In your heart, you're already vegan, because that's the definition of veganism. Mm-hmm. So, but what you're doing does not match what you're saying, right? So we have to then get our actions into alignment with our words and our thoughts. And that's when we actually overcome our suffering, actually. Because whenever we are in misalignment, we are suffering.
Mm-hmm. Well, that kind of brings me then to say then that humans are Homo sapiens, the predator species, and Climate Healer's vision is for us to move to Homo Ahimsa, the caretaker species. What are the 7 core shifts that we need to undergo to make this happen?
Yeah, so Homo sapiens is a Latin for the wise hominid.
Yeah.
And and I realized that I've never really met a wise person who goes around saying I'm wise.
True.
So when we say that, we are automatically not wise. Because we have the ability to call ourselves whatever we want. So we chose that, and so that to me is the egocentric phase of humanity, the narcissistic phase of humanity, the predator species going around saying, look, I'm so wise. And so I'm suggesting that we transform to Homo Ahimsa, because Ahimsa is a Sanskrit word that means non-violent. It's actually the opposite of extreme violence. So it's the exact opposite of being extremely violent, which means you're extremely compassionate. Okay, so that's what Homo Ahimsa means. And so it's a combination of a Latin word and a Sanskrit word, which signifies that we are coming together as a species.
I like that. Okay.
Right? And it's also describing our character, not our characteristic.
Very good.
So it's a better way to call ourselves, right? So that's the transformation I'm talking about.
Well, I'd still call you a Homo sapien. You're pretty wise.
Oh, no. No, I don't want to be called.
And a Homo Ahimsa.
You said previously that we are all being factory farmed. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And do you feel that that applies to both privileged and marginalized people?
It applies to all of us, because privilege is actually a prison. People of privilege, if you go to, you can see that, vividly when you go to poor countries. So I was in Ghana, for instance, and in Ghana, you see the people who have wealth, who have privilege, their houses are all surrounded by walls with barbed wires, and they have a sentry in front of their house so that no one can get in without permission. And they're all inside, they're isolated, and they're drinking alcohol, and and they're miserable. Okay? They're miserable. They're really in prison. And whereas the people outside, they don't have enough to eat. So both sides are being factory farmed. Everyone is being factory farmed. Why? Because we have a system that's basically it's all about making money. What is the next action that will make the most money? That's how we frame our actions. Okay? Because if you think about it, 97% of Americans don't get enough fiber in their diet. This is not something I made up. This is something that the USDA is reporting. Okay? 97% of Americans are not getting enough fiber in their diet. 98% of Americans don't have enough potassium. So they are deficient in potassium. 68% are deficient in magnesium. So you can go down the line for all the micronutrients. You will see so many of us are malnourished. Okay? This is in the most privileged country in the world, right? The richest country in the world. People are malnourished. The vast majority of people are malnourished. So 70% of people are, overweight or obese, according to the BMI. So you have this situation where the richest country in the world is malnourished, and the poorest people are malnourished because they don't have enough to eat. So something's wrong, right? At the same time, we are extracting 6 times as much food as we really need from the planet. So what are we doing with that food? We are giving it to our animals first. Okay, so we are extracting 9 billion tons of food. We are giving 7.3 billion tons to our animals. And the animals are giving us just 0.19 billion tons of food. So there's like almost a 40-to-1 reduction that happens going through the animal. And then we fight over the animal food. The privileged gets more of it, and then less privileged get less of it. And it is a story we have told. It's full of lies that you have to eat animal foods in order to be healthy, which is an outright lie because there is no fiber in animal foods. There are no micronutrients in animal foods. Literally, we are poisoning ourselves by eating animal foods. We're literally being made to poison ourselves so that pharmaceuticals companies can make money off of our diseases. Mm-hmm. So this is what I mean by we are all being factory farmed, right?
It's a real racket, that's for sure. It's definitely a racket.
Yeah, it's a lack of awareness. It's also, deliberately miseducating people. Mm-hmm. Because the science on protein is well known. The science on calcium is well known. And yet we are teaching our children that you get protein through eating meat. We get calcium through drinking milk, right? So we sort of drill it into their heads when they're kids. And then, they get sick as they grow older, and then we make money off of them, right?
That's crazy.
Well, that does lead me then to my next question. That's a perfect segue. That we are up against the pharmaceutical and medical industries, along with the meat, dairy, and egg industries. They're all well-established, deep-pocketed, savvily lobbied, and highly motivated to continue business as usual. Each of us, though, has our own strengths. What gifts do you bring to the goal of dismantling the status quo and achieving a vegan world?
No, it's really about taking back our power. We always have the power, to go eat well and get better, to educate ourselves. There are documentaries that are detailing exactly what is happening, so there is Cowspiracy, What the Health. These are documentaries that we created to tell people this is really what's going on. Okay? They are literally farming you and turning you into money machines. I'll tell the story of Paul Chatlin, right? Paul Chatlin, in 2013, he couldn't walk even 10 steps without getting excruciating chest pain. So he went to his cardiologist, and the cardiologist said, well, your heart is enlarged, the right side is thickened, and your one major artery is 100% blocked, two other arteries are 65% blocked. And so you have two options. Either, you have three options. Either you die, which is the first option, or you get a triple bypass heart surgery, or you can go on a plant-based diet. So he decided to go on a plant-based diet.
That actually shocks me because so many people would rather do the other, take the surgery, right?
Right.
Or kick the
butt. Yeah. So he took the plant-based option, okay? And so his journey illustrates what's wrong with the system. Because he took the plant-based diet and he then went and got trained to cook a whole food plant-based meals. So he got a 30-day training program from Dr. Esselstyn and Ann Esselstyn, and it cost him $975, okay, for the cooking classes. So he then tried to get Blue Cross Blue Shield to reimburse him for the money he spent because he got better. And not only did he get better, he's now running marathons. This guy is completely recovered, right? So he tried to get Blue Cross Blue Shield to pay for his cooking classes, and they refused. Oh. He escalated it all the way to headquarters. And finally, headquarters told him, you have to get the legislature to change the rules. Oh. Because there is no code for cooking classes.
Unreal.
So he said, how absurd is it that you're not paying me $975 for cooking classes, but you are willing to pay $125,000 for a triple bypass heart surgery.
Yeah.
But that's the system he had, because he had already paid for that $125,000 bypass surgery because of all the premiums he had paid throughout his life, right? So you are entitled to that. You already paid for it.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
Mm-hmm. It is nuts. But that's what we are doing. Whatever happened to Paul Chatlin is happening to humanity. on a global basis. Okay? That's exactly what's happening. There is no code for healing the climate. There is no code for the cure for climate change. But there is a code for the bypass surgery for climate change, which is put all these solar panels everywhere and then, right? There's code for that because there's plenty of money to be made. And then the other side is saying, no, I don't want any code. I want to rather die, right? So that's the fight that's going on, between the liberals and the conservatives. No one is talking about the cure except the vegan community.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why the vegan community is so central to climate healing.
Absolutely.
Now, it's no surprise that COVID-19 originated in a wet market. And subsidies are what prop up and keep alive the animal agriculture industry. What are your thoughts on sin taxes on animal products or eliminating animal product subsidies or directing subsidies towards veganic farming and creation of innovative plant-based foods so that taxpayers aren't forced to support this cruel and destructive industry?
Yeah, we need to be demanding that of our leaders. Not that they would do it, but we need to keep demanding it to highlight the injustice that's going on. Because they're subsidizing animal foods, they're subsidizing all these bad foods, causing all these pandemics, causing all these chronic diseases in the population. So, in my opinion, they are responsible for the ongoing genocide of human beings who are dying unnecessarily of these chronic diseases and of these pandemics. Because their subsidies are all in the wrong places. They're all designed to maximize the profit of the animal agriculture industry and the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry. Instead, if they were really public health officials, if they were really public officials who had the interest of the public at heart, they would be subsidizing good food that is healthy for human beings, that would get them off these chronic diseases, that would get them off these, that would make them survive these pandemics, because a lot of people who die of COVID-19 had comorbidities. So they were, they already had diabetes or heart disease or asthma or something or the other that was caused by eating bad food in the first place. So they were all being poisoned by their food. And then COVID-19 came and did the last bit, right?
Yeah. Didn't lay a very good foundation in their body to be able to fight this disease.
Yeah. So I really think that we are in the midst of a public health crisis. That is the climate crisis. Climate crisis is a public health crisis. Not just the health of human beings, but also health of the animals, health of the planet. It's a public health crisis. And it's being treated as a money-making opportunity instead of being treated as a public health crisis that can be addressed by recommending the cure. So we need to keep demanding that they change the subsidies from animal foods to plant foods, to organic plant foods. And in fact, we need to demand that the organic plant foods be almost free for people.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, literally free. So that people should be able to eat healthy foods. That's what I understand when someone says you have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what I expect to see happen. That's the creator. The creator has given me that right to life, right? Instead, we say you all have a right to life, and then we say you all have to earn a living, which is the exact opposite. Which is basically saying you don't have a right to life unless you serve the master.
Well, it all boils down to that almighty buck, everything.
Almighty buck, yeah. Because whoever has the almighty buck is your master, right? That's the colonial master. So through this game of money, we have literally promoting colonialism. Mm-hmm. And racism and sexism and all the isms, right? They come from the way we generate money, the game of money.
You're right.
In order for us to make these changes, it's going to be important that we change the conversation. So why is it important that we have individuals like Jane Velez Mitchell saturating the airwaves with a different message?
Oh, it's absolutely essential because we have to tell a new story, a story in which human beings belong exactly as they are. We all belong exactly as we are. And we are turning from the caterpillar into the butterfly. So then people realize, oh, wow, so it's like, imagine that you're standing on top of a mountain, right? And you climbed up the mountain going this way. And you know that if you keep going this way, you're going to fall off the cliff, right? And I mean, you could focus on how steep the drop is if you keep going this way, and how many bones you're going to break if you fall off that way. Or you can say, I have to make this left turn and go down that way, and I'll get to the promised land. Okay? So I'd rather we focus on the pathway to the promised land than focus on how steep the drop is if you keep going down.
Good old Homo Sapiens going to take that swan dive off the cliff, I think. That's how we are. Now, just going back to what you were saying before with regard to the subsidies, we do have a morally bankrupt or carnous system of making money off death, disease, and destruction. Could you tell us about Aquarius, which is a vegan system?
Yeah, so the idea behind the Aquarius game is really a currency game, right? It's a currency system. Currently, the money game, the money is generated from the top, so by a few people, so they have control over the way money is generated, and then they dribble it down to us in the form of loans. So you can go get loans from a bank. So really, that money is not yours. You just borrowed it from a bank, right? And you have to earn it back. So you have to go and compete with someone else who also borrowed and get it from them and then return the loan back to the bank.
A vicious circle.
It's a vicious cycle. So at any given point in time, there is more debt than there is money in the system. So it's a top-down money system. And then we are told that there are rules. Okay, and the rules are that as material flows from nature up the hierarchy, you can take profits. As much profits as you want. Okay, because whatever the market can bear, right? You're allowed to take profits. But as resources flow down the pyramid, down the social pyramid, then if you take profits, they get very upset with you because then you're stealing from the rich, right? So this is why when you go buy $2, a pound of rice for $2 in the supermarket, and you go and ask the woman who grew the rice in India, how much did she get paid for it? She only got paid 5 cents per pound. So the other $1.95 was taken out as partly as transportation cost, but mostly as profit, right? So this is how we steal from the poor to enrich the rich. And then the other way around, when I give $2 as charity to a food organization, for instance, to deliver food to the poor, I expect, 90% of that, okay, $1.80 to go to the woman, to the people who, so we know how to transport down the pyramid very efficiently. It's only 10% loss. But on the way up, it's like tremendously inefficient, right? Yep, so this is a game that was created by colonial traders in order to siphon off wealth from the colonies. And we are still playing the game. It's not like we invented the game, we just inherited the game from our ancestors. This is how the game of colonialism has been played all along. So in the aggregate today, the global north is siphoning $3 trillion worth of wealth from the global south every year by playing this game. Okay, so Aquarius says, let's reverse it. Not reversing in the sense that, feeding money to the global south. It's saying, let's begin with the assumption that all men are created equal, all beings are created equal, and that money flows from the bottom up, not from the top down. Because money is really a representation of my time and my energy and what I'm going to do with it. So if I have control over my own money, then I can decide what I want to do with it. So I become free, right? So then using this mechanism, you can then measure our ecological footprint. So the only thing we really need to measure on the planet is our ecological footprint to make sure that we don't exceed our limits. It's a footprint in terms of how much land we are using, how much water we are consuming, how much CO2 we are emitting. All of that can be then measured and regulated by the Aquarius currency. So that's the idea behind the Aquarius currency. It's a multidimensional currency. That's a way to measure our ecological footprint.
Now, children feature prominently in the $1 Million Vegan Campaign and Animal Hero Kids. How important is involving and focusing on children to achieve this vision that you have and that we have?
Oh, it's extremely important to focus on children and to learn from them, and to stop conditioning them. Because you see, the gift that my granddaughter gave me was that she removed some of my conditioning. She helped me see through my conditioning. Like I was reading a story to her, and I thought I was reading like our epic Mahabharata, Ramayana. I was reading Ramayana to her, and she stopped me in the first chapter and she said, "Who told King Dasharatha that he could go shoot a deer? That poor deer was just drinking water from the river. What's wrong with him?" And then that's when I realized I had taken it as normal, right? Yeah. That kings go shoot deer in the forest. They went hunting. And then she said, "Don't ever read stories like this to me." That was the end of my epics. Okay. So I was so proud of my epics because there are a lot of morals in them, right? But I realized that for the vegan...
We have another moral, right?
Right. So we have to add this other moral, which is speciesism, right? Anti-speciesism. That needs to be put into our epics.
Yeah.
And so that I realized that we need to rewrite our epics for the vegan world. Rewrite all our stories. I mean, I couldn't read any of the other stories, like the fairy tales and all. I mean, she would point out to me all the violence that was in the fairy tales. Mm-hmm. And she would say, why are you reading these stories like that? So I was making up stories. Mm-hmm. So I would read Brothers Grimm, and then I would change the story so that...
That's amazing. She's so similar to how I was as a child. Like my parents would have to do the same kind of thing. I'd be like, I don't want to hear this. It's, anything to do with animals, especially. Ooh.
Right.
So one of the ways that you tell stories is through documentaries. Can you tell us a little bit about them? Specifically, Countdown to Year Zero is currently available on Amazon Prime. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so Countdown to Year Zero is a documentary that Jane Wells Mitchell produced about Vegan World 2026 and the work we are doing and all the other animal rights activism that goes around getting to a vegan world by 2026. So the documentaries that we produced, I mean, that I was an executive producer of, so Countdown to Year Zero, I'm sort of like the featured, one of the featured stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to speak.
Right.
I saw you.
Yeah, the others I was the executive producer of, and I was basically helping get the word out. Mm-hmm. So Human Experiment is about the chemical pollution of the planet and how we have created a system in which corporations don't have to reveal what pollution they're doing to the environment because it's a secret. It's a trade secret.
It's crazy.
See, if they don't have to reveal what they're polluting the environment with, how do we control whether we are within limits? It's impossible. Okay, so you can never get to a donut economics as long as we have this kind of system where we don't even know what we are polluting the environment with. Mm-hmm. So that was the first one, the Human Experiment. And then we showed that pollution is coming back to us in the food we eat. So Cowspiracy is about animal agriculture and the impact it has on the environment and how through animal foods we are getting all these toxic stuffs into our bodies. And then What the Health was about what is it doing to our bodies, and it's causing all these chronic diseases and literally making us sick, right, by eating these animal foods. And then they're making money off of it. So that closes the loop. Right? So it's all about making money. So when people watch What the Hell, they tend to get it. They tend to understand, oh, this is what's going on. So I am being also victimized, right? So So that's why it's an important documentary.
We're very
And the
self-serving.
fourth is A Prayer for Compassion, which is to tell people, from every religious angle, compassion for all creation is the foundation of our religion. Compassion for all creation is who we are born as, and so we need to get back to our roots.
Right.
So this is really returning home to who we are. Going vegan is about returning home to who we are, because we are done with our job. Our job is to make sure that there are no more ice ages on planet Earth.
That thermostat species needs to step up its game in many different ways. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So in its Sustainable Development Goals document, how do you propose to persuade the United Nations to replace goal number 8, decent work from and economic growth, with zero animal exploitation?
So it's just like, Gandhi, when he was asking the British to leave India, he wasn't really expecting the British to get up and leave.
Right.
He was just asking that so that people around him know that that is a common demand that we need to make.
Right.
Right. So it was about energizing the people. In the same way, when we go and demand that the UN drop economic growth as a goal, because every nation that has signed the Sustainable Development Goals are pretending to meet all the goals by just growing the economy.
Right.
But in reality, growing the economy does not meet any of the other goals, because we have hit the limits of the planet. We can't really grow our way out of it. So, but the other goals are good goals, like zero hunger, no poverty, gender equality. These are all good goals. And we need to be able to meet those goals independently of economic growth. Because if we meet the other goals, who cares if the economy is growing or not?
Exactly.
Ooh,
Exactly.
there we go.
Right? So why are we focusing on goal number 8? That's my question. Throw it away and put down zero animal exploitation, which is a good goal to have.
And it actually helps meet the other goals.
Exactly. It does help meet the other goals. It's synchronous with the other goals, right? So this is why demanding that the UN do that is not, I don't expect the UN to jump up and say, yep, we'll do it.
Wouldn't you be surprised if they did, though?
I would be shocked if they did, right? But it's about telling people, look, this is how they're tricking you.
Yeah.
They're tricking us in pretending to meet the goals when all along they have no intention of meeting the goals.
Yeah.
Because they're focusing on goal number 8.
Yeah. They like that one, don't they?
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned one of these horrifying statistics, saying that at the current rates of decline, 100% of wild vertebrates will die off by 2026. Also, humans slaughter over 74 billion land animals and kill 1 to 3 trillion sea animals each year. I've been fighting for animals since I was tiny. I'm becoming fed up, feeling our species is a virus and a parasite rather than some, part of nature or the natural world, as you very generously say that we belong here. And you touched on this before, but changed my mind.
Yeah, it's about how we tell our stories. If we tell a story that human beings are the virus on the planet, then people are not going to do anything about it. They're going to say, we are a virus, so we're going to have to die off. So everything has to die off. So we are literally killing all the animals, pretending to be a virus. Right? Whereas if we tell a story in which nature is always in charge, has always been in charge, and she tricked us into preventing another ice age from happening. Okay, that's what she did, literally, right? And now she's slapping us around saying, wake up.
Absolutely.
Never thought I'd see the day, as Sailesh Rao would say, slapping us around.
She is slapping us around, saying, wake up. She sent us to our room saying, think about what you have done, right? And wake up. And so it's a story of love. It's a story that in which we belong exactly as we are. That I belong in my own home. I want to feel that, I want to feel like I belong on earth exactly as I am. And so then as part of that, I'm making this transformation. See, even in the Bhagavad Gita, right, which is one of the sacred book of the Hindus, it's a dialogue between man and God. And man goes to God and says, why should I do all these things for you? Why should I fight the battle of life?
Right.
You are God, you take care of the problem, right? You're so powerful, you can do it. And God says, how do you think I do it? Through you. So you get on the ball and start doing things. And then he gives him all this advice, right? And at the end of that chapter, and end of the Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, God tells man, look, I've given you all this advice, but I love you so much that I've set you free even from me. And you're free to choose.
Ooh, the big emancipation, huh?
Of course, by that time, man was so much in thrall of God that he said, I will do whatever you want, right? But so that's how love works, okay? And basically what God tells man is that no matter what you choose, the outcome is still the same. It's just how much time it took for that outcome to happen.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
Right.
So meaning the earth will recover. The earth will recover and will come back to being its beautiful self again, no matter what we do. But the only choice we have is, do we want to be part of it or not?
Right.
Right? So I'd rather that we become part of it, right? That we are part of this. This is the story I want to tell.
So climate healer chapters are all around the world. Is there any chance of us getting one set up here in Toronto? And how else can people get involved in this project?
And I know that Ray Kowalchuk and Kelly Kerr are really wanting to get climate healers here in Toronto.
Yeah, there is already a chapter because Ray is already part of climate. Ray and Kelly are part of climate healers, and they are. So basically, the way chapters are formed is that climate healers, we have this new way of telling the story, and so we talk about the new story and the new game, right? And I've done a bunch of lectures on that. And so I ask people to just watch those lectures and understand the new story and the new game, and how we tell the story of climate regulator species. And then we ask people to watch the 4 documentaries. The Human Experiment, Cowspiracy, What the Health, and A Prayer for Compassion. And then you become certified as a climate healer. And when you're certified as a climate healer, you have the right to start a chapter wherever you are, so that you can then get other people to join and also get certified. So this is how we are trying to spread the message, right? Spread the word, educate people. Because to me, education is the most important thing we need to be doing. Because if people are educated, they automatically do the right thing.
We hope. Right?
So that's the idea behind Climate Healers chapters and spreading it. So you're already there, you're part of it.
All I need left now to watch is the Human Experiment. I've seen all the other ones multiple times. So, and when we were doing the A Prayer for Compassion, we were going into different facilities and playing it, because I think it's very important that the religious community, that it's kind of an untapped or, frontier or whatever. So I thought that one was very important. So I have seen that one several times.
Yeah, how many times is that now?
I couldn't even count.
I know
More
at
than
least
the fingers on both hands.
I was going to say, I know that you've watched it at least 5 times, but
Yeah.
I think even more than that.
Many. It's a good movie. So, anyway, we just wanted to thank you so much. You are always so inspirational and motivational, which is very important. And we really appreciate you sitting down with us once again. And sitting down with me once again, but Alec,
It's been a pleasure to actually sit down and interview via Zoom. I know that we've spoken a few times in person, but it's been really great to have a little bit more in-depth conversation. And thank you so much for taking time today.
Thank you, Sue and Alec, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Now, we do have a new YouTube channel. So Calling All Vegans, it's called. Surprise. And we just kindly ask you to subscribe, like, comment, and share, if you would, please. Thank you.
And everyone, please stay tuned, because just after this interview, we will be playing the trailer for Countdown to Year Zero. So stay tuned for that. And thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
The moral position is to resist this and to end it.
People need to know that this is the reality.
So we have a system that's based on, making money off death, disease, and destruction. It's something that we have never, ever faced before.
The trees are going up in flames.
We have 10 years to turn it around.
The earth is telling us we have to change.
Inside of here is my daughter. I want her to have a good planet to live on, not just a planet to live on, because this planet will survive us.
This affects everything.
That's the only way out that we have. That's the only way out where I see light.
Again, it's the #1 thing you can do to reduce climate change.
And I totally recommend it.
Yeah, it is historic.
In 20, 30 years, you'll have all our friends hitting us up being like, yo, you're a visionary.
It is a fight against ignorance and apathy.
Moin.